What if everything you thought you knew about the world, the safety of your home, the tranquility of your city, the promise of a future, could be taken away in an instant? What if one night you found yourself in the middle of a nightmare you never saw coming? Could it really happen to anyone? Could a moment of peace turn into a violent tragedy that would leave an entire city reeling? It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening. The city of Columbus, Ohio was alive with the usual hum of activity, the streets teeming with people going about their business. From the soft glow of street lights to the distant hum of cars driving by, everything seemed normal. Yet beneath the surface of this everyday scene, something darker was lurking. Somewhere in a parked car on a quiet street, a young woman sat, unaware of the danger closing in on her. But as she was about to find out, nothing would ever be the same again. What happens when a life is snatched away in an instant? What drives someone to take a life so senselessly, so violently, with no regard for the dreams, the potential, and the future that person once held? How does the loss of one individual send shockwaves through an entire community, leaving grief, questions, and a trail of unanswered mysteries in its wake? This isn't just another story of senseless violence. This is the story of a young woman whose life had only just begun to unfold. A rising star, a figure in the music and fashion industry who was on the cusp of greatness. She had dreams, ambitions, and a voice that could captivate audiences. But in a cruel twist of fate, her life was stolen from her in the blink of an eye. And for what? Was it a random act of violence, or was there something more beneath the surface? Who would want to harm someone with so much promise, someone who seemed to have it all ahead of her? What could have been the motive behind such a targeted attack? As the night unfolded, a series of events would forever alter the course of a city's history. What started as a typical evening soon erupted into chaos as the sound of gunshots pierced through the quiet. A young woman's life was cut short, her story left unfinished, and in the aftermath, the city would be left grappling with its own questions. Who was behind this attack? What led to the tragic demise of someone who had touched so many lives? And why was she taken from the world so violently at the height of her career? In the wake of her death, fans, friends, and family would be left to mourn, struggling to make sense of the senseless violence that stole her future. The city, once calm, would never be the same again. For those who knew her, the pain of losing someone so full of promise and potential felt impossible to bear. And for those who admired her from afar, her sudden death raised chilling questions about the dangers that lie in the shadows of fame, success, and the pursuit of dreams. But even as the investigation into her death began, the questions only grew. What was the motive behind this senseless attack? Was it just another tragic case of random violence? Or was there a deeper story waiting to be uncovered? How could something like this happen to someone who seemed to have the world at her feet? As the investigation unfolds, more and more details will emerge, details that hint at a much larger picture, one that involves more than just a violent robbery gone wrong. Who were the people behind the crime, and what was their connection to the victim? What dark secrets were hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed? And how did this tragedy impact the lives of those who were closest to her, forever changing them in ways they never could have anticipated? In this video, we will explore the life and tragic death of a rising star, a young woman who had everything to live for. Her untimely death would leave a lasting mark on her community, her fans, and the world. This is the story of how one senseless act of violence stole a life, shattered dreams, and left a city reeling in shock. Before she became known to the world as Boog the Bandit, she was Courtney Nicole Bruce, a young girl from the streets of Columbus, Ohio, with dreams that soared far beyond the skyline of her city. Born and raised in a neighborhood where hardship was a constant companion, Courtney grew up surrounded by the harsh realities of street life. But even in a place where survival often took precedence over ambition, there was something about her that stood out. She liked to talk problems out. Her family, her friends, even those who crossed her path only briefly, all seemed to notice it. An undeniable spark. A spark that Courtney wasn't just surviving, she was striving. Those who knew her described her as determined and fiercely ambitious, with a presence that lit up any room she walked into. She had this energy about her, like she was destined for something more, something greater than the circumstances she'd been born into. But the road to greatness is never easy, and Courtney's path was no exception. Growing up, she saw things most people couldn't imagine. She lived through the highs and lows, the moments of joy mixed with heartbreak, and the constant tug-of-war between hope and despair, and in the midst of it all she found an outlet, a way to channel her emotions and make sense of the chaos around her. She discovered music. Courtney first picked up rapping as a teenager, almost as if it had been waiting for her all along. What started as an occasional hobby, a few rhymes scribbled in a notebook, soon became her lifeline. Music wasn't just a pastime for her, it was her escape, her therapy. Every beat she wrote, every lyric she rapped, became a piece of her story. And when she stepped up to a mic for the first time, something magical happened. Her voice carried a rawness that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just words, it was her truth, unfiltered and unapologetic. Through her music, Courtney shared her struggles and triumphs, painting vivid pictures of the world she lived in and the world she dreamed of. She rapped about survival, about heartbreak, about the unshakable belief that she was destined for more. And people listened. They could feel the authenticity in her words, the depth of her pain, and the strength of her resolve. As she honed her craft, Courtney adopted the stage name Boog the Bandit, a name that soon became synonymous with resilience and ambition. She wasn't just making music, she was building a movement. Her tracks were more than catchy beats and clever lyrics. They were stories that resonated with her community and beyond. Songs like Heart Away became anthems, offering a glimpse into her life and laying bare her dreams for a brighter future. Her talent was undeniable and her determination was unshakable. Boog began performing at local events, her confidence growing with every show. People couldn't get enough of her. They saw in her someone who wasn't just talented, but also real. Someone who wasn't afraid to tell it like it was. Her name started to spread beyond Columbus, with fans drawn to her ability to turn life's harshest moments into something beautiful. For Courtney, the future was starting to take shape. She wasn't just dreaming anymore, she was doing. With every track she released, every performance she gave, she was one step closer to turning her vision into reality. Boog the Bandit wasn't just a rising star, she was a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever dared to dream big, despite the odds stacked against them. But as her star began to rise, so too did the challenges. Fame, even in its early stages, has a way of attracting attention, both good and bad. For Boog, the stakes were higher than ever. The streets she rapped about, the same streets that had shaped her, were still a part of her life. And in Columbus, like in so many cities, success could be as dangerous as failure. Courtney Nicole Bruce was on the brink of something incredible. Her voice, her vision, her very essence was beginning to resonate far beyond her hometown. She was ready to take the next step, to reach the heights she had always dreamed of. But the world she came from had its own plans. Little did she know, the dreams she worked so hard to build would soon collide with the dangers she'd spent her life trying to rise above. By 2020, Boog the Bandit's star was rising faster than anyone could have predicted. She wasn't just another rapper trying to make it out of Columbus, she was a force, a breath of fresh air in a music scene often dominated by those who sounded the same. Her sound was distinct, her lyrics heartfelt, and her presence commanding. She had that rare ability to blend raw street authenticity with genuine artistry, something that drew people in, made them want to listen, and, more importantly, made them want to believe in her. To the night and recording in makeshift studios, she was beginning to see the fruits of her labor. She was preparing for her biggest move yet, a full-length project that promised to elevate her from local fame to regional recognition. It wasn't just about fame for her, it was about using her platform to tell real stories, to represent the struggles and dreams of those who came from places like hers. Her team knew she was close to a breakthrough. Every performance, every new song release brought more attention, more fans, and more opportunities. There was talk of potential collaborations, bigger shows, and even interest from major labels. Boog knew that this was her moment. She was determined not to let anything derail her path. But while things seemed to be falling into place, there was an undercurrent of tension. Boog was aware of the risks that came with rising fame, especially in an environment where success could sometimes attract the wrong kind of attention. She wasn't blind to the realities of street life. She had grown up in it, after all. Fame could be a double-edged sword, and as much as she loved her city, she also knew that not everyone celebrated her success. Still, she didn't let fear control her. To those who knew her, Boog was fearless, resilient, and determined. She carried herself with confidence, but never arrogance. She stayed grounded, keeping close ties with those who had been with her from the beginning. Despite her growing fame, she remained humble, just Courtney to those who truly knew her. Her music continued to reflect her life, the highs, the lows, the dreams she had for herself and her community. Each track was like a chapter in her story, revealing a little more about the girl behind the rising persona. And people connected with that. Boog wasn't just creating music for the sake of popularity. She was creating music to inspire, to give hope to those who felt trapped by their circumstances. But with success came pressure. There was always the next song to write, the next performance to deliver, the next milestone to reach. The grind didn't stop, and neither did she. Boog knew that every step forward was a step towards something greater, something she had worked for her entire life. She was ready to take on whatever challenges came her way, or so she thought. Boog couldn't have known was that she was standing on the edge of something extraordinary, and something dangerous. The streets that had shaped her music and fueled her ambition were also unpredictable. Every day brought new possibilities, but it also brought new risks. She was moving fast and the world around her was watching. Some admired her rise, while others viewed it with jealousy, suspicion, and malice. Boog didn't let any of it faze her. She had come too far to stop now. All she could see was the future she had always dreamed of. The concerts, the recognition, the chance to take care of her family and make a real difference in her community. She knew her story wasn't just her own. It was for everyone who had ever felt stuck, who had ever dared to dream of something more. She was on the brink of something monumental. The air around her was charged with anticipation. You could feel it, this sense that she was right there at the threshold of greatness. Her fans were waiting, her team was ready, and Boog herself was prepared to step fully into the spotlight. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Boog's story wasn't just about her rise. It was about what happened when everything seemed within reach. May 20th, 2021. What began as an ordinary night would soon be remembered as the night everything changed. The air in Columbus was still, almost too quiet. In moments like these, life seems to move in slow motion, as if the universe itself is holding its breath before chaos strikes. Boog had no reason to suspect anything unusual that evening. She was out with a close male friend, likely enjoying a rare moment of calm amidst her busy life. The grind of music, the excitement of new opportunities, it all faded into the background, if only for a little while. They were sitting in her car, parked in a familiar area. Perhaps they were discussing her upcoming projects, or maybe they were just enjoying each other's company, unwinding after a long day. The city around them went on as usual, cars passing by, the distant hum of streetlights, faint sounds of nightlife in the distance. Boog, always alert but never paranoid, didn't realize that danger was closing in. In moments like these, everything can change in an instant, and that's exactly what happened. Without warning, armed assailants approached the vehicle. The shadows concealed their identities, but their intent was clear. This was no random encounter. They wanted something, and they were willing to take it by force. A robbery in progress, fueled by desperation or greed, it didn't matter. Boog and her companion were caught completely off guard. The situation escalated quickly. Voices were raised, tension skyrocketed. In the chaotic blur of those few seconds, decisions had to be made. Did they comply, or did they resist? Did they hope that by giving in, they could avoid violence, or did instinct tell them to fight back? No one knows exactly what went through Boog's mind in that moment. But one thing is certain, things spiraled out of control. Gunfire shattered the night. The sharp cracks of the shots echoed through the streets, cutting through the stillness like a knife. Panic spread as nearby residents heard the commotion. In the chaos, Boog was struck. Multiple gunshots tore into her, leaving her bleeding and barely conscious in the driver's seat. Her companion, equally shaken but unharmed, could do little but call for help. Time was running out, and every second mattered. Sirens blared in the distance as first responders raced to the scene. For those who knew Boog, this moment marked the beginning of a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The bright, promising young artist who had fought so hard to carve a path for herself now lay fighting for her life. Paramedics arrived and worked quickly, loading Boog into an ambulance. There was hope, however faint, that she might survive. But even as they sped toward the hospital, those closest to her feared the worst. The injuries were severe, and the odds were not in her favor. Word of the incident spread rapidly. Social media lit up with posts from fans and friends, all desperate for information, hoping against hope that this was just another false rumor, another cruel trick the internet sometimes plays. But as more details emerged, the gravity of the situation became clear. This wasn't just another rumor. This was real. Boog's closest friends rushed to the hospital, their hearts pounding with fear and disbelief. How could this happen? She had been right there, on the verge of something incredible. She had worked too hard, come too far to have it all end like this. The dream she had fought for wasn't supposed to turn into a nightmare. Not like this. As they waited anxiously for news, the reality of the streets weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Boog had always known the risks. She had grown up surrounded by them, had seen firsthand how quickly things could turn violent. But knowing the dangers and becoming a victim of them are two very different things. No one was prepared for this. No one wanted to believe that her story, one filled with so much hope, could take such a sudden and tragic turn. Inside the hospital, doctors fought to save her. Every effort was made, every possible measure taken, but the damage was too severe. Despite their best efforts, despite all the hopes and prayers of those who loved her, Boog didn't make it. At just 26 years old, her life was over. The city of Columbus, once alive with anticipation for what she might achieve, was now shrouded in grief. Fans, friends, and family alike struggled to comprehend the loss of someone so full of promise. How could it end like this? How could someone who had so much ahead of her be taken so soon? The news of Boog's death sent shockwaves through the community. Columbus, a city that had quietly nurtured her rise, now found itself mourning the loss of one of its most promising young stars. Social media became a flood of sorrow, fans posting heartfelt tributes, friends sharing memories of a vibrant, determined young woman whose dreams were tragically cut short. Her music, once a symbol of hope and ambition, now felt like a bittersweet reminder of what could have been. People from all walks of life came forward, not just to grieve, but to honor her legacy. Fellow artists, many of whom had faced similar struggles, expressed their heartbreak and their anger. The streets she grew up in seemed quieter, as if the city itself was mourning her loss. Candlelight vigils were held in her honor, gatherings where people came together to share stories, light candles and play her music, letting her voice echo through the night one last time. But amidst the mourning, questions still lingered, unanswered and unsettling. Why Boog? Why then, on that quiet May night, when she was on the cusp of something so monumental, was it really just a random act of violence? Or was it something more calculated, something rooted in jealousy, greed, or the harsh realities of street life? The police launched an investigation, determined to piece together the events of that fateful night, while Boog's family and friends demanded justice. Conversations began to stir, not just about Boog's life, but about a larger issue that had long plagued the music industry and urban communities. Violence against young artists was becoming far too common. Many wondered aloud, how many more dreams would be shattered by the pull of the streets? How many more young talents would be taken before something changed? In the days following her passing, her music soared in popularity. Streams and downloads skyrocketed as people, many discovering her for the first time, wanted to hear the voice that had touched so many. Tracks like Heart Away and Risky became anthems, not just for her fans, but for those who saw themselves in her story. Every beat, every lyric carried more weight now. Her music was no longer just art, it was a testament to her life, her struggle, and her dreams. Her family, though devastated, vowed to keep her legacy alive. They spoke about how Boog had always wanted to inspire others, to show that no matter where you came from, you could rise above it. They set up a foundation in her honor, aimed at providing opportunities for young artists in underprivileged communities. It was their way of ensuring that Boog's voice would never truly be silenced. But even as the tributes poured in, the search for answers continued. Detectives worked tirelessly, tracking down leads, questioning witnesses, and trying to uncover the truth behind her death. Rumors swirled. Some said it was a robbery gone wrong, while others whispered about deeper motives, perhaps tied to envy or unresolved conflicts. But one thing was certain: the truth, whatever it was, needed to come out. Boog's story wasn't just a cautionary tale, it was a call to action. Her fans, too, played a part in keeping her memory alive. They shared her music, her story, and her message across every platform imaginable. To them, Boog wasn't just an artist who was taken too soon. She was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of dreaming big, even when the odds are stacked against you. And yet, as the days turned to weeks, and the weeks to months, one question still haunted those closest to her. Would justice ever be served? Would those responsible for her death be held accountable? For now, that question remains unanswered. But Boog's legacy lives on, through her music, through the lives she touched, and through the countless young dreamers who look to her story for inspiration. Her journey may have ended, but her impact? That's just beginning. If you believe that no young life should ever be stolen by senseless violence, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Let's honor Boog's legacy by spreading her story and supporting the dreams of those who come after her. Only those who think stories like Boog's don't matter will scroll past without subscribing. Stay tuned, because in the next part of this story, we'll dive deeper into the investigation, the suspects, and the search for justice. There's much more to uncover, and you won't want to miss it.